he's got the type of tool bag that screams first-round talent to me.
The conversation around the edge group for the 2022 NFL Draft has been one that has largely been exhausted at this point, right? And we saw the emergence of Kayvon Thibodeau as somebody who was a favorite in the summertime to be an early draft selection. He's largely held serve. Aiden Hutchinson has evolved his game and is now in contention to be the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. We saw Trayvon Walker as another member of that Georgia front who really exploded onto the scene as Georgia went on to win the national championship. But where I'm really interested to pick you guys' brains right now is after that upper tier, that includes the 2 Michigan guys, Thibodeau, Walker, Karlaftis, and Jermaine Johnson. After that group of guys, how do we like this group? Who do we think can step in and fill and potentially get into the back end of the first round and be an impact pass rusher for a team that's probably going to be playing in the playoffs again next year based on the teams who are largely picking in that range?
I like Boye Mafe out of Minnesota. I knew everybody wanted him.
He's mad that name's off the board now.
I had to jump in because I thought that was the low-hanging fruit, man. And I love Boye, and I think that he probably will be a late first-round pick. And there's so many destinations: Dallas, Arizona, Green Bay definitely pops.
Kansas City.
Yeah, dude. There's spots for him. At Detroit late, right? Depending on what they do at 2. Tools, man. This guy's got all the tools you're looking for: length, explosiveness. Dominated at the Senior Bowl. Obviously, was phenomenal in the game as well. Just has all the stuff that you can't teach, and just kind of developing consistency, developing that pass rushing repertoire is all that's left for him to do. And I think that, like, if I'm a D-line coach, I'd love to get my hands on this guy because he's got such a high floor in terms of traits, and now it's just a matter of developing him and getting the technical side down. But he's got the type of tool bag that screams first-round talent to me.
All right, so the low-hanging fruit is gone. And maybe not first round, too, but I know you got like a guy out of Mississippi as a guy who's a day 2 player who could be a potential impact pass rusher at the next level.
Yeah, man. Sam Williams, man. I mean, he's a guy with pro size. He's 6'4", 265. He can set the edge. I think 4-3 teams will love him as a strong side edge, but I think he's an ideal fit as a 3-4 outside guy, right? He's someone that can get home, right? He can rush the passer. He's got great quickness, and I think that he proved that with his sack production this past year in the SEC. So I think that Sam Williams is someone that can be a day 2 guy that teams are going to love as someone who is one of the better pass rushers in this entire draft, and he has pro size and length, and that certainly helps him.
Brentley, your guy's still on the board here to talk about in this conversation too.
Yeah, I mean, so, I'm the high guy relative to TDN on Nick Bonito, Oklahoma edge rusher, and he's a guy I watched over summer, and I liked him right away. The juice, the explosiveness, the ability to really bend and flatten and get to the quarterback all stood out to me, and I recognize there are some issues and flaws with this player. He's not a perfect player by any means. He's a little undersized relative for NFL standards, and so because of that, teams are going to want to run the ball at him. Teams are going to want to attack him in the running game, but then he comes in the combine, and he weighs 248 pounds. People thought he was going to come in at 225, 230, and so for him to come in at 248, still roll a 4.5 40, showing that explosiveness, showing that burst, some of my questions kind of go away. And so when you start to think about second-round edge rushers and where I can get immediate impact and where can I get some of these guys on the field, Nick Bonito is that guy because he is so explosive. He's a sack artist. He's able to work his hands and really stretch the edges of offensive tackles. You're willing to live with some of the flaws in the run game because he's shown that he's able to kind of put on some mass.
Guess that leads to me, right? I'm going to go with a guy out of your region. I'm going to go with Arnold Ebiketie. Man, I thought this guy had tremendous upside. I thought he was explosive, not just good, not just quick twitch. I thought he was explosive at the snap. And it was a little bit frustrating, right? Because this guy was always 2 yards off the football. So many times I wanted to say credit card alignment, get lined up on the football because he was still beating offensive tackles when he was 2 yards off the football. So I'm like, man, let's make this easier for you and get even closer to them and watch what happens. happen, right? But I thought he was really fluid. Like, this wasn't just a smaller frame guy that was a straight line guy. He showed to have really good bend, and then he had closing speed to the quarterback too, like that finishing speed that you really like. So, man, I think there's so much untapped potential with this guy. And the knock will be on him is his size, right? And I've noted it personally. But watching the film, this guy just flat out battles at 240 pounds. So as far as a mentality, I'm not that part doesn't scare me. And you think about Von Miller. I'm not saying this guy is Von Miller at all, but Von Miller has created a Hall of Fame career with having a special role, and that's just getting after the quarterback and just having a mentality just to hold up on the edge. And that's what I'm asking this guy to do, because if you're a special edge rusher, I'm keeping you on the field, because we all know that strip sack fumble is probably the most impactful play that can happen in the game.
You jackals picked over pretty much everybody that I would have made the point to mention here.
What about Pascal? I know that's your guy.
Yeah, I was thinking about Josh Pascal, maybe somebody with a little bit more pass rush ceiling early on. Maybe I would lean into Tyreek Smith from Ohio State, but
okay.
I do think Josh Pascal can play significant snaps early on, even if it's not as a pass rusher. This is he came into the combine in the mid 260s, but he was on the roster at 280. And I think you saw that density when you watched him play at Kentucky. One of the heaviest punches in this year's class amongst the edge group, and somebody who I think can play an unspectacular role as being somebody who maybe is reduced head up or inside eye on an offensive tackle, and can really help set the edge and get that knockback to prevent teams from running the ball with success, getting the edge off tackle with a lot of consistency. But Pascal's a guy who was a man possessed this year versus his previous tape. Ask those Florida offensive tackles what it was like playing against Josh Pascal this year. He was just an absolute nightmare, and the push that he would get, he looked like an offensive lineman drive blocking guys off the ball as far as the amount of movement that he got into the backfield. So he's also a guy who cut down in the mid 260s and jumped 38 inches in the vertical jump. And it was very, very explosive in the lower half. Now, he only ran 4.8. He's probably half a second faster than I'd run these days, and he's got about 100 pounds on me. So Josh Pascal is somebody who I think doesn't have the pass rush ceiling as a lot of the names that you guys have mentioned, but I do think he has early down snap potential to maybe be the inverse of what a lot of the guys that you've talked about being guys who have a lot of first step explosiveness, a lot of ability to get after the quarterback. Pascal won't be that, but he's going to make somebody happy for being a part of a defensive line rotation and really helping your run defense too.
Yeah, I think the biggest anomaly in this edgers class, and really the biggest question mark, is Drake Jackson out of USC. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of variance in terms of opinions about this kid. I've talked to teams that have him squarely in the second round. And I know that's pretty rich, but at the end of the day, you go back to his 2020 tape. He's getting home to the quarterback. He's a loose limb athlete. He's explosive. He's a natural pass rusher. And what's the most valuable thing you want in an edge defender is getting to the quarterback. And so, I've heard some things where he wasn't able to kind of put on weight at USC. I think he's gained about 20 pounds since then.
Up around 265
or so.
260.
So that him showing his ability to kind of add to his frame makes you want to buy in a little more what he can be at the next level. But I just want to mention him as a guy that I think he's going to go higher than we think.
Yeah, he's a little bit of an odd build, right? He's only 6'2", but he's got really long arms. He's got a lot of great length with that stature. He almost reminds me of like Jordan Willis out of Kansas State from a couple of years ago, who had the length, wasn't super tall and long. This is assuming Drake keeps that weight on and plays in the 260s. And Jordan Willis ended up being a mid-round guy who's played a rotational role to this point in the NFL. But you see the first step potential that Drake has, and I think that's what teams will always come back to if if Arnold Ebiketie gets drafted in the first round and there's the off the field stuff that is a concern with Sam Williams ends up pushing him down some teams' boards. That might be the void that Drake Jackson kind of naturally fills. Whether or not that's a fit that's going to make a team happy or not is a different story.
Keep a straight face.
Please do. Please do. Let's change gears before Dre goes off the handle.
I want to hear Drake's opinions here.
Go ahead.
I'm sure you do, man.
Go ahead. I'll hang up and listen.
You all can briefly. You all can have Drake Jackson, right? You all can have him, man. I mean, it wouldn't. I would not care if Drake Jackson played at 275. I mean, I just think as far as the temperament and his ability, what he put on tape this past year. I said this very early on when he was getting first round buzz. This is not a first round player. He was too hot and cold. He doesn't set the edge. He's not strong either. For a guy with his size, yes, he has great length, but he doesn't do any of the things that I would like my edge setters, my outside linebackers to do, man. And he's just not a physical player. But you all can have him. You know, he's all yours.
Anybody have any favorite day 3 players in this group?
Drake Jackson.
There you go.
Oh man.
I mean, you mentioned Tyreek Smith out of Ohio State, where
He'll probably be a day 3 guy. Might get into the third.
Right, but like as a DPR designated pass rusher, I mean, he's got some really high level reps where you see him string together moves. I saw a lot of flexibility with how he can corner the edge, and he's got pretty good length. And so I know that he's a little bit lean, and maybe you wish he ran a little bit faster. But I saw some pretty impressive pass rush acumen in a kind of limited reps, but that's a guy that I'd love to unleash on long and late downs. That gives me some appeal in early day 3.
Give me defensive end from Texas A&M, Michael Clemens. This guy's 6'5", 260. I promise you, he is how you want him built. And I think he's going to go higher than what we thought, because I think teams are going to what, Joe? Bet on traits, baby. Bet on the traits. It was unfortunate because I watched this guy, and then he had invite to the Senior Bowl, and then he didn't show, and I thought he would have shown well. I thought that would have been somewhat of his coming out party as far as his exposure to NFL teams and just the NFL community overall. But this guy has been fairly quiet. I don't think he participated in the combine either as far as running a 40-yard dash. So people don't have a lot of information on this guy. So I'm interested to see where he goes. I know he finished the season with 8.5 sacks, I believe, and he had 3.5 sacks in his last game against LSU. So to me, that was just a quick snapshot in what he could be on the next level. And we talk about Texas A&M and how they use their defensive ends in such a versatile way. He was another guy, much like the Marvin Lil, right? When I wish that they just had a centralized position, he's a stand-up outside linebacker at Texas A&M, but I believe he's a hand-in-the-ground guy where he can get in that track stance almost and be able to explode out of that stance to really give him leverage along the defensive line against offensive linemen. So he's a guy that I would have circled on my board that if he falls to me, I'm definitely taking him.
We talk about bet on traits, guys. I'm not going to let all you guys go and leave me with the last pick. Sorry, I'm not doing it.
You're going to take my guy.
I don't think I'm going to take your guy. This is a guy who he was from my region. I was a little lukewarm on him the first time I watched him, but I gained a little bit more of an appreciation for him when I went back through and watched him again. And then I got a chance to see him at the Senior Bowl, and he carried a lot more weight and carried his weight in a better way than I necessarily thought he did when I saw him from afar. And that's Dom Robinson from Miami of Ohio. He is a very twitchy, 250-pound, but he's still lean. He's one of those lean-bodied rushers. You'd like to probably see him get another 15 to 20 pounds on him just based on how his frame is. But he's a ball of clay, and he's very athletic. And at the Senior Bowl, you saw that first step quickness that he has, and that was something for me that he's got length, he's got burst. I think he's got some flexibility that he's able to work with. Now the question there is how much of that can you maintain if you do bulk him up, or is he just a speed rusher as a designated pass rusher? And the level of competition, I didn't think the Senior Bowl was too big for him. He didn't dominate that event, but you saw the flashes that existed there. So if I'm looking for a guy in the late 4th, 5th round range, need somebody who can maybe develop with time into a significant player for me 3 years from now, Dom Robinson from Miami of Ohio is a name that I would circle.
I agree. He had that who is that guy moment at the Senior Bowl, being a smaller school guy, right? Because I'm looking at him. I'm like, wait, is that a Nebraska helmet? Is that Western Kentucky? And I had to go run to ex-Kyle Krabs. I'm like, man, who is that guy?
Yeah.
I think that the guy for me is a guy that could go as high as the 2nd or 3rd round and could go as low as the 4th or 5th round. And it's a guy, you talk about intangibles, right? You talk about the things and having the right things upstairs and within your heart to be to have the power to stay and play a long time in the National Football League. That's Penn State's Jesse Lucetta, right? Mm-hmm. I think of a guy who's played some who's played off the ball linebacker. He's strong. He's heavy at the point. He'll play every team for you, every course special team, and this is someone who has all the intangible things to be a leader. And I could very easily see this guy playing 10 years in the NFL. There will be 3-4 teams who see value in him as an outside guy, as an edge, and there will be 4-3 teams that value him as a strong side end. I think that he can do both. I think he's proven that during his junior and senior seasons, and this is someone I think that we should keep our eye on as a late round guy.
I agree. He comes off as one of those guys that end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Baltimore Ravens, and then it's a Sunday afternoon and he's making plays, and you're like, man, how they keep getting all the good tough guys? Right? Like it's always that feeling, but he just seems as though he fits that type of culture.
Any name for you?
There are a couple. Just kind of rattle them off. I think D'Angelo Malone from Western Kentucky. He's a guy undersized, but he's explosive. He can bend. He can really get after the quarterback. But in the run game, he leaves quite a bit to be desired, just in terms of the lack of length and lack of physicality at the point of attack. Another guy who's a name that has been first round buzz entering the year is Myjai Sanders out of Cincinnati, and he just didn't live up to that in his senior season. He is long. He's can bend. He's pretty explosive. He's okay in the run game, but just overall, he didn't make that leap that we were hoping to see. And then, he had a combine in which we know he was sick, but the numbers were pretty bad, obviously. And so we don't necessarily know how athletic he is because we didn't get accurate testing. But he's a guy I wouldn't be shocked to hear his name called in the 4th round. And I think if you can get him that low, you have a chance of getting a good player.
The patented Joe Marino double dip. I was expecting
very,
it coming
very
from this
well
side,
done,
and I
bro.
got it from this
Well
side.
done.
This is a really good edge group. There's a lot of talent here. It's an exciting blend of skills and traits and scheme fits. And as a testament to, we were around this table twice and managed to find more than enough names for everybody to go through, shouting out some of the superlatives of this year's edge class. So if you had to ask me, this is probably one of the better top to bottom position groups from the 2022 NFL draft.